Hello and welcome. Good evening or morning. Don't know when you watch this. This will be a visual guide to the four horsemen. There's a lot of details and stuff going on, so it can be beneficial to actually watch something instead of just reading a text wall. So first we're going to draw the room in which the horseman fight is. And we'll cover the abilities and what to look out for. This is a very complicated or boss encounter, but like a Thun, once you've nailed it, you will master it after that. So I'm just going to make some zones here. Text. Here's the entrance where we enter. Going to make another square over here. This square is where the bosses are positioned when before the pull, as you've seen on when we were first there. And this here little circle, actually let's paint it with a color pink. So we'll want that. I'm gonna call this the safe spot. Now, there are four horses, four bosses with four, or they have their own different abilities, and a couple shared ones. They have their own health pools, though I think they have the same amount of health, like roughly 1 million each. And they must be killed one at a time, or they don't have to be killed at the same time, basically. The single most important thing with this encounter is to hold the bosses far, far away from each other because of their main ability, which we'll come to later. So the first thing, from the pull, we're going to pull the bosses to one corner each. Let's, for example, if we have one over here, not an artist, but this will hopefully serve its purpose. So let's also write their names while we're at it and cover their personal abilities. We'll pull this one here is Tain Kort, I don't remember how it's written, something like this. Tain Kortas. This is one of the fire damage bosses, and this boss is the reason we're gathering fire resistance gear for our tanks and DPS players in particular. This boss has a mechanic that we're familiar with from AQ40. It's the meteor. It will land roughly, I think it's 20 or 30 seconds on a random target within 30 or 40 yards. Deals around 15,000 fire damage, divided among all players that are soaking on the target. So as we're used to from AQ40, we stack tight to split and share the damage. Let's just type this here, fire damage divided on the stack. These notes were nice to keep in hand, just remember what all the bosses do. Other than that, mediocre melee damage, nothing too fancy. The fire damage is the trick here. And this boss and this mechanic is the single mechanic that makes this whole encounter 15 levels harder than it needs to be, if you ask me. But yeah, this is the trick, handling the meteor. Basically, if one player dies while this boss is alive, it will very quickly lead to a chain reaction in which we have too few soakers, and then more damage upon each player, more mana spent, healers go boom, players die, and then we have a wipe. So this is the toughest one to tackle, and this is the one we will focus our toughest, our DPS cooldowns and trinkets and whatever, getting down quick, so we can get rid of this meteor mechanic. Then we have Mograine over here. I think it's called High Lord actually. High Lord Mograine. I think it's called Righteous Fire, his ability. He wields the Ashbringer, and so he has like a proc chance. Every time he hits, he can proc Righteous Fire, which will deal around 5,000 fire damage over 10 seconds or so to the tank, which this is quite significant because it can proc quite often. And he deals very heavy melee damage already. So this is the tank killer. Let's just type 5,000 fire damage over time on tank. Heavy melee damage. And this is also the reason why the tanks are going heavy fire resistance. So this will be our second priority to kill, to get rid of all this damage going on. For everyone else, this boss is not real dangerous. Just stand behind him like in a normal boss. Just the healers must be aware that this one is mana intensive to keep up, because there are not too many healers per tank. And then let's go to the corner over here. We need blue. Don't remember the name or how you type it, just Blamo or something. And her ability is Void Zones. She will conjure these black circles on the floor, roughly the same size as a normal hitbox, or like a big pet or something. Basically, if you stand in them, you die. They deal around 5,000 shadow damage every second. And they will spawn at the feet of a random player within her zone, or 40 yards or something. So usually this will hit either one of the healers that are currently positioned here, or the tank. So you can't miss them. You can see them very clearly. They're pitch black. Look like the Cthulhu effect on the floor, like the black water or something. So the tank must be aware here, because he'll be positioned in the corner. He must position himself so that he has an escape route. He can escape to either side if he drops a void zone. And the healers should try and position themselves so that they're standing close to a void zone, so that when you drop one, it will be close to an already existing one. Think like Globulus here with the poison clouds. You can try and stack these void zones up so that we have a lot of free space for others. They will despawn after like 5 minutes or so. So after a while, the floor over here will be littered with these zones, and you kind of have to dodge them. But yeah, as I said, you can't miss them. Now, I don't know if all these numbers are correct, but it's roughly, it will give you an idea. So damage upon touch. Mediocre melee damage, nothing too fancy here. The last horseman, and probably the most dangerous one, but also rather easy to tackle, is Sir Zeliek. Here we have holy damage, so no potion can save you, because there are no holy protection potion. Or resistance, for that matter. He will do, I think it's called Holy Wrath. I'll write I-beam, because this works exactly like Cthulhu's I-beam. It will hit the tank for roughly 600 damage, 40 damage, and if any player is within 10 yards of this tank, it will chain, double in power, and it will jump indefinitely. So it can, like, if people are stacking or stand too close here, you one-shot the raid in a second. So basically, I just try chain spell, doubles damage on each jump. No melee on this boss ever. Just the tanks that are swapping, and their healers and ranged at absolute max range. I believe it's 35 yards. Let's type that here. So you have to stand at absolute max range at all times if you are casting or healing on this boss. Now that's all their own abilities covered. Now they have a shared one over here. Let's type this in black. And that is shield wall. They will do it, I think it's 2 times. 50%. And I think 20%. Don't remember this, but yeah, you get the idea. Which reduces, same like a warrior shield wall, if we reduce the damage taken, all damage, not only physical, by 75% for, I think it's 20 seconds. So when shield wall is up, you are better off saving range, energy, mana. Just want them to regain mana if we have wisdom on the boss or whatever. Yeah, this just basically just downtime to recover mana, and yeah, it's basically, it was made kind of like an mechanic to make this boss unzergable. Because if you have high damage, you can just stack them all and cleave them down with whirlwind or whatever. But since this spell exists, that's what makes it kind of impossible, so that you have to follow the mechanics. But of course, with the modern meta standards, you can of course cleave them anyway, I guess, if you have 25 hero warriors. But that's kind of that's the purpose of this spell, and it makes it so that we have no chance to zerg this. We have to play by the book, and so this spell will just give us downtime, basically. And then we have over here, this is the main mechanic of the entire fight. The marks. I'll just type some notes here. Each horseman has their own individual mark. Now, these marks will be applied to all players within, I can't remember if it's like 65 or 70 yards or something in a radius around the boss. So let's, of course, now these circles will not be like perfectly correct, but it gives you an idea, because basically the only position you can stand safely without being hit by a mark from any of the horsemen is this tiny little spot here. Roughly the circles will be like out here and over here and down here and so on. Roughly 65 yards. And so, as you can see here, each time you get a mark, you get a stack, and then each stack increases the damage you will take next time you get a mark. The marks do shadow damage on impact, and say mark 1 gives nothing, but increased damage take from second one. So second one gives 500 damage, the third one does 1500, I think. The third one does 2000, the fourth one does 4000, the fifth does 7000 or something, and then it's just snowballs after that. So basically, I'll type this here. 3 marks is the rule of thumb. When we have 3 marks, say if you're fighting, say if we're fighting down here, we're fighting Cortaz, we get 3 marks from Cortaz. Now we want to move out. We can either go here to the safe spot, or we can fight a different boss, get 3 marks from him or her, and then swap again. This will happen in a very strict rotation. And that's also why the purpose of the safe spot, for people to rest and let the marks fade before you can get new ones, because they will last for 75 seconds, these marks. So they last for a while. Different ways to do this. You can either go from one boost to the next and go all 4 around, but we want to limit the damage intake. And so we're going to go with getting down these 2 heavy hitters, Taint Cortaz and Harlan Morgan, which means we will only rotate between 2 bosses. But the timer doesn't add for that because of the debuff, so that's the purpose of the safe spot. So basically, this is where it gets kind of complicated. Now, sorry, how do I put this? Does it make sense so far, Volk?
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, I'll try and explain this rotation simply, but yeah, bear with me here. We will divide all the DPS into 4 groups. So say when we start, one group is over here. One group is over here. 2 groups are in the safe spot. Now, say this group over here and this group over here, they all give marks at the same time, by the way. The same speed, the same time. So now these 2 groups fighting the bosses, they have 3 marks. Now they have to get rid of them. So they will go back to the safe spot and switch with this group here. They have no marks, so they'll come down here and take over. And simultaneously, the same on the other boss. A tank follows each group, of course, because the tank gets marks too. So they need to swap. Bear in mind, this does not include healers. Healers will have a totally different rotation, which we'll get to later. So here on Morgraine, the swap is simple. Just go down, taunt the boss, DPS run out, DPS run in. On Thane, this is a bit complicated because of the meteor. And it comes down rapidly. So here you cannot at any point run out before this swap group has reached you and stacked with you. You cannot ever leave the tank alone. Because if he gets the meteor alone, he's dead. And this horseman will quickly run over to someone else, to a healer maybe, and we're dead. So there must always be a stack of players on Thane Cortaz. So on this boss in particular, the swapping will be very tight. Sometimes you may get 4 marks. You can survive that. That's why we swap by 3, so that we have actually some margin to get 4 if it comes to that. But any more than that will be a death sentence. And nailing this rotation is the key to the fight. Basically, if Taint Task goes down, this boss gets 80% easier. The rest is then usually, if people are alive, then the rest is usually a cakewalk. So proper timed swapping on Taint Corritas so that every meteor is shared with multiple players so that this fire damage is mitigated. Of course, the fire resistance gear will serve its purpose here because then the meteor will do less damage. We will get more uptime. And of course, we will do the dry runs at the start. We won't use pots or heavy pots or whatever. And this, if we use fire resistance gear, then the healers won't have to use as many mana pots. They will save gold too. So your fire resistance gear is cheaper than all the pots you would use to get the same amount of experience and uptime. So, and eventually, as we get more and more comfortable with this, and the tanks swap here, and the healers get more used to maintaining the heals on the fire damage over here, and so on, the DPS will start and piece by piece swapping out their fire resistance gear for the normal gear. The 4 tanks that are here, however, will keep their fire resistance gear on for some time because of Righteous Fire on Morgraine. Of course, these 2 bosses must be tanked too. And will be 4 tanks, since these don't have like super heavy damage. Like down here on these 2 bosses, will be 4 tanks, and all 4 of them will have uptime on this one because you start, for example, Kaisai starts here and Small Cow starts here. I go here and rest. When this group needs to swap, I will go here because I still have marks taking from Taint Corritas. I cannot go back to that boss yet. And Small Cow, when she has rested in safe spot, she'll go to Taint Corritas and then back again and so on. So all 4 tanks down here will tank both bosses, which means 4 tanks with fire resistance gear and 4 tanks without them. So these 2 bosses on the top will be tanked by the off tanks, if you will, like Pursue, Korik, and Skeet. You will rotate at the same tempo, but you will go by a different route, as you can see here. So say if Pursue is here, he's starting with Lady Bramau. He tanks her, gets 3 marks. He goes back to his safe spot, rests a bit. Now it's time for a swap. He goes up to Sorceliac, gets 3 marks, back to safe spot, back to Blamau, 3 marks. Makes sense? Hello?
Yeah.
Does it make sense? You understand?
Yeah. We're
Yeah.
just carefully listening.
Yeah. So that's the DPS and the tanking rotation, basically. Also, one important note that when you are tank swapping on Sorceliac, usually, let's use green. Use green. The healers and casters will probably be around here, right? And the tank will be standing here, tanking. Safe Pursue, he's now done with Blamau. He has rested in a safe spot. He's now going to take over on Sorceliac. He cannot just go over here, because then when he reaches this point, he can be hit by Holy Wrath. This can chain back to the healers and they're all dead. So Pursue here and all the tanks, the 4 tanks that are assigned to this side of the room, must go by a different path. I'll use blue so that it's distinctive. Over here, to this wall. Hug this wall around and go in. So usually you may have to go a little earlier than you would expect. And of course the healers and casters on Certelec must be careful not to be too close to this here path. They must stand, like if we make like a circle, within this zone, roughly. So the tank has space to go in and risk taking a Holder Bath without chaining these to others. This is like a, yeah, an easy wipe if that happens, and it can happen, but it's something to keep in mind. So that's basically it. We're gonna make 4 DPS groups down here, groups 1, 2, 3, and 4, and we'll call general when as soon as Mark 3 has gone out, the safe spot group will start moving immediately. So they can come down, take over, and give the other group a chance to get out without being hit by the 4th mark. But on Taint Coritas, better safe than sorry. If you have to take 4 marks, then so be it, but don't lose the stack. Run in a stack, run out in a stack, or the meter will kill you. Okay, now we're going to take the healing rotation, which is actually pretty straightforward. Some lines because they're annoying. Yeah, we're going to have a minimum of 12 healers, and we're going to separate these healers in 3 different colors. Say if we have blue healers, red healers, and green healers. Not tied to this boss color, by the way. So let's we have 1 green healer, 1 red, and 1 blue, and the same on this boss and on every boss actually. The healers will swap on every mark by color. So say, and this will make it so that no healer will ever have more than 3 marks. And because you can imagine, you can't have all 3 healers run at the same time, because then when the healers are here and here and here and here, who's healing? Well, no one is. So the healers must rotate 1 at a time. So say mark 1 goes out, blue healers rotate, and this blue healer will go over here, and blue healer that was here will go down here. The blue healer that was here will go here, and this blue healer will go here. And next mark hits, red healers rotate. The red will move, and so on, and so on. And green healers move. So now, by the time green has come over, now the next mark that hits the blue one will be his 3rd mark, and he will swap on the next application of marks. So this will keep the healers always moving and always below 4 marks, basically. And this will, we might, personally, we did it when we practice, we did this with healers in separate voice. But I think it won't be a problem here. I guess most people have like DBM, so you can see a display of which mark, like the marks have a number. You'll see mark 17, mark 18, mark 19, and so on. I can have like a list of numbers so that green healers will swap on marks 1, 4, 7, 10, and so on. And blue healers will swap on mark 2, 5, 8, and so on, so on. We can do that, or we can call out by voice. We'll see when we get there what the healers prefer. But this is at least how Actually, it looks very ugly now when I see it, but this is how it works. Any questions from our spectators here? Or does it make sense?
I mean, it does make sense. Like once it's a learning curve, but we will get it.
This is basically when you follow everything written here and everything, all these lines to the letter, it's actually very easy. But of course, getting a group of 40 to follow every step here exactly to the letter is easier said than done. So it will take us some practice. It will take us many wipes. So when we get here, make some coffee, get some snacks, try and make this an entertaining evening because it can get tedious. But we'll get it done. This is the recipe. We will focus, thank our task first. This is where you burn our cooldowns. This is where you burn our mana and your trinkets and what have you. And if we can make that a goal at first, to get Thane down with the group alive, that's a milestone. We can progress quickly from there. But that's the first goal of learning this boss. That is, of course, to get rotation going, and then to get Thane Cortaz down without anyone dying. That would be ideal. And from that point, it's just a matter of time before we get them. So yeah, if you can beat these guys and follow these steps, you have then officially beaten the most complicated boss fight in WoW Classic, which is a huge achievement, especially for an old school casual group. So this is a huge undertaking. But personally, I'm very excited for this. Been looking forward to this for over a year. So yeah, this will be pretty damn cool. So no questions. You can probably end the stream, Sean.
Hi, Kai.
Hello, hello.
Because the only healer that's in here.
Oh yeah, hello.
Hi. Healing
Hello.
rotation is vital in this, and I think the easiest way is to assign the healing groups a colour, like you've suggested.
Yeah.
And call out blue, move right, because then.
Yeah, we did that in the past. We had like they move clockwise and 3 colors. So blue move, and then next red move, and green. We did it in voice, but I know that some speculate about doing it with the numbers on DBM2. But personally, as you say too, I think by voice is better.
I think it's much less complicated.
Yeah, basically.
To assign everybody a colour. I've seen it done where healers are assigned numbers. I've done this fight before, originally in original WoW.
Yeah.
And it can get very, very complicated when you're calling out healers 1, 4, and 6 all move, and it's like
yeah, it's like
you have to remember what number you are as well. Whereas if you're given a colour, it's far easier.
Yeah, I think the color
is a really good idea.
Easy to understand, and it keeps it simple and serves its purpose. So I think that will be easy to overcome the healing one, or so I hope. Support a lot going on, but of course the healers must know some things like on Blamo, careful, watch your step, watch where you might drop void zones, don't step in them. On Cerceliac, don't get too close. On Mograine, actually nothing going on, just heavy damage. And on Pain Cortas, stack with the group. We must stack with the group. So each boss offers something different for each healer, but the rotation is rather straightforward. Yeah, I guess you can quit it, Sean.